And something really important just happened as Ellie was laying all of that out for us, which is that as soon as Donald Trump and his attorneys got in the courtroom, the judge corrected what Donald Trump falsely asserted yesterday when he left the courtroom, which is that because of the gag order that's in place, it prevents him from testifying, something that Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, shook his head in affirmation at as Trump said that. And when Trump entered the courtroom this morning, the judge said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't prevent you from testifying.
Yeah, this was fascinating because this is the first time we've seen the judge respond really to something that Trump has said outside the court when he addresses the media, and he's clearly correcting the record. He said, no, this gag order does not prevent you from testifying. And we know that since the gag order has been in place, Trump has also repeatedly said that it's possible that he might testify. So it felt like yesterday's statement was intellectually dishonest, a little bit of politicking at the mics there. But it's interesting that the judge took a moment to set the record straight and say, no, that's absolutely not true.
Yeah, because when we had this gag order hearing last week, Laura, I mean, the judge was making clear that Trump understood what the parameters of the gag order were. Trump's attorney affirmed that, yes, he did know. And it clearly says nothing in it that Trump himself cannot choose to testify, that he can testify if he wants to.
He absolutely can. And they even went further than this. Remember, there was a hearing called the Sandoval hearing that took place a few weeks ago at this point now, where the judge was saying, here are the parameters of what people might be able to ask you if you do take the stand. Now, the Sandoval hearing is a way of saying, here's your unnoticed defendant. If you want to testify, there are things we might be able to bring in that are not necessarily charged conduct, but prior bad acts. And these might be used to what they call impeach you. In other words, point out inconsistencies or give the jury an insight into some kind of MO. The judge would not have done that, would not have gone through the process if he intended to actually limit the ability of a defendant to testify. And of course, the whole reason he's doing this is because he knows it's a court of public opinion. That's not these 18 jurors. If he wants to testify, it's well within his rights. Now, whether he will, I'm almost salivating right now as a former prosecutor thinking about a defendant taking the stand, because you can bring out so many things. It's Pandora's box. And once that door is open, it really cannot be closed. They have to be really, really careful. That's why he wants to get ahead of it. He wants a pure deferential and yet not do it. And we're seeing right now there's an argument that from Todd Blanche, a tweet from the Washington Post should not be admitted because it includes a photo of Trump, Billy Bush, and one of the women in the Access Hollywood video, which of course they cannot show. It's too prejudicial.
This is fascinating. Another first. This is the first time the appeals court decision related to Harvey Weinstein has been brought up. Just a moment ago, the Trump team, while they're arguing about why this evidence shouldn't come in, cites that decision, but the judge knocked it down, saying, quote, the Weinstein decision really doesn't factor into this. This is something that a lot of sources in Trump circles have been raising, whether that decision related to Harvey Weinstein's conviction, whether that could potentially help Trump here when it comes to bringing in certain pieces of evidence. But the judge making it clear here, he doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, we'll see what the argument is that they're making here. Obviously, the Weinstein decision made in recent weeks was a huge overturn of his conviction. And Jim, obviously following all this closely as this witness that was on the stand when court ended yesterday is expected to retake the stand as Trump's attorneys are going to continue their line of questioning. We'll see who else takes the stand today.
Yeah, should be another lively day of testimony, Caitlin. Maybe some surprises. Maybe we'll finally see some witnesses I think that everybody has been waiting for at this point. Ellie, let me go to you first. Let's button up what they were just talking about a few moments ago. We have Trump coming in yesterday saying, you know, because of this gag order, I can't testify. Apparently a few moments ago, he cleaned that up, tried to clarify it. Let's play a little bit of what Trump said yesterday, talk about it on the other side, and then get into what the judge just said.
Right.
Well, I'm not allowed to testify. I'm under a gag order, I guess, right? I can't even testify on that. No, we're going to be appealing the gag order. I'd love to answer that question. It's a very easy question, the easiest question so far. But I'm not allowed to testify because this judge, who's totally conflicted, has me under an unconstitutional gag order. Nobody's ever had that before. And we don't like it, and it's not fair.
Yeah, Ellie, I like it when he turns to Todd Blanche and Todd Blanche nods and shakes his head no. Not knowing what to say. I guess some lies have to be cleaned up, and that's what he did this morning. And then the judge just a few moments ago said, no, you do have the right to testify.
Of course.
The gag order has nothing to do with it.
Good gracious. The statement by Donald Trump is so outrageous, so off base, it's hard to know where to begin. But the gag order has nothing to do, 0.0 to do with Donald Trump's ability to testify. He has the right to testify. He has the right not to testify. There will be no limits on that right. And by the way, the gag order, let's just understand, because I always think the name gag order is overly suggestive. Gag suggests you can't talk at all. He can say almost anything he wants. He just has to lay off of witnesses, jurors, court staff and families. I mean, we hear him going on rants almost nightly. He did this morning, he did last night about the judge, about the DA, about the indictment. That's all totally fine. So it's quite a limited gag order. I think it's worth noting he's actually not violated the gag order. They should have one of those signs up. Has not violated the gag order. And I think we're on 10 days now. So I don't know, maybe he understands and is complying now.
But Jamie, it seems to me the reason why he said that yesterday, and he says it stuff like this out on the campaign trail as well, he knows his supporters are watching.
Right.
He knows they're watching.
This is one of the problems with not having cameras in the courtroom, not even having audio the way we do with the Supreme Court. He comes out at the start of the day, end of the day, and that message goes out. Yesterday, in addition to the gag order, he was saying things like he just couldn't talk. I mean, it gets completely convoluted. But to Ellie's point, Judge Merchan was criticized for sort of holding on the gag order. It does seem to be working, and he has not ruled. So he came out this morning, and we got the usual round of grievances. He attacked the judges, the DA, President Biden, but notably, he did not attack Michael Cohen, other witnesses, no mention of the jurors. It is always fascinating. He's really transparent. You know what's getting under his skin. What did he say? The judge is allowing salacious testimony, and our side isn't getting anything in. But then Donald Trump pivot. A few minutes later, he says the case is going fine.
Yeah.
I do want to draw attention to what's happening right now, because what we're seeing is Blanche arguing that a specific Truth Social from last August should not come into evidence. And that Truth Social actually was problematic for Donald Trump in his federal cases as well. Jack Smith filed something. Now, what he said in that Truth Social was, if you go after me, I'm coming after you. Jack Smith, at the time, raised this with a judge saying that he was threatening witnesses. The Trump team scrambled to say this had nothing to do with witnesses. This was about news reports that someone was spending money against him in the campaign. Now it appears it's coming up again, and they're having a conversation about whether or not this should be included. Blanche trying to say once more this was not about witnesses. I think that's very interesting that now we're seeing the crossover in all of his legal cases, particularly because Donald Trump tends to put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah, Ellie,
something that could cause
Caroline,
problems.
what do you think about how the judge is handling this balancing act? I mean,
Look, it's an incredibly
he's on
hard
a tightrope.
He's on a tightrope, and it's an incredibly hard balancing act. They made a reference a second ago, folks might have seen reference to Molyneux, this standard in New York for bringing in prior acts of an individual and so on. And there are any number of very gray areas that judges have to sort out. One, in this context of things they did in the past, their behavior, these prior bad acts that was the subject of a hearing, but also how you strike a balance between speech that's protected, particularly for a political candidate. And frankly, the judge in his gag order referenced the fact that he wanted to be mindful of the fact that the former president is himself a candidate for office. But to Ellie's point, the former president really can say virtually anything in the world, including very explicit things about the judge or even the elected district attorney, and has seemed to behave better. I would note that in the context of another civil suit, a civil suit in the state of New York recently, it was after the imposition of sanctions on the president that he actually started behaving and didn't behave better.
Carolyn, how do you think the jurors are reacting to all of this?
Well, let me just say about the gag order. I think the judge is actually doing Trump a favor. Trump has two fronts here. He has the trial and he has the election. But as far as the trial is concerned, with the evidence that I've seen, if he can just zip it, he's way better off. So the judge, by silencing him and threatening punishment, the quieter he is, I think the better that he does. In terms of how our jurors reacting to this, I'm sure they're sponges. Just like Jamie said, we're just peering through the courthouse door to try and see what's going on. The jurors are seeing everything. They're going to see when somebody has a vein in their temple that's throbbing because they're stressed. They're going to see when people get angry. But they're really focused on facts. And jurors, I am a huge proponent of the jury system. And when people talk about democracy dying, well, as long as we have criminal trials and criminal defendants have rights no matter who they are, we have a thriving democracy. And these jurors are going to do their job, and they're going to focus on the facts, and they're going to scrutinize the motives because that's what an adversarial process forces them to do.
Yeah, one of the key guardrails for our democracy, we'll see if it can keep Trump reined in when you said if he can zip it. I thought I heard you say that a
If
few
he can
moments
zip
ago.
it. It's hard for him, right?
That word "if" is doing a lot of work this week.
Well, I think that's why his lawyer's like, right, you're going to zip it.
Yeah, all right. Guys, thank you very much.